So, with Strange New Worlds airing and already doing well, I thought I'd create a quick primer for those who are interested in checking out the series, Trek fans or not, to be able to jump into the adventures of the Enterprise without having to go back and sift through all of Discovery in the original series. There will be no spoilers for Strange New Worlds, but I will include relevant details from other shows, drawn from the media that was already common knowledge before Episode 1 of Strange New Worlds. And just a quick note, the Star Trek 2009 films and its sequel movies have nothing to do with this series, that is set in its own self-contained continuity. First up, the series is set in the year 2259, which places it 1 year after Star Trek Discovery Season 2 and 6 years before the original series with Captain James T. Kirk. However, it is set on board the same ship, the USS Enterprise NCC-1701, and some of the characters that will later go on to appear in TOS are beginning to make their presence known. But we are seeing them at an earlier point in their careers. At this time, Kirk is still a lieutenant, but would have been coming to the end of his career on the USS Farragut, but soon be making a name for himself. He does have a brother in Starfleet too, though who unfortunately dies in 2267. There was a pilot for the original Star Trek called The Cage, set in 2254, which featured several characters that would later be dropped in favour of the 2265 crew. And it was from this pilot episode that the crew of Strange New Worlds is primarily derived. First off, we have the captain, Christopher Pike. Born on Earth from the Mojave, this captain was in command of the Enterprise from 2250 until 2264, when he hands over command to Captain Kirk, and he himself accepts a promotion to Fleet Captain, stepping away from the bridge. His first officer is Number 1. Real name is Una Chin Riley, who has been his XO since 2254 and a close friend. By the time of Kirk, she has also stepped away from the Enterprise and is generally regarded as a genius in Starfleet. Then there is Lieutenant Spock, the science officer in Pike's time, who remains aboard the Enterprise after Pike's promotion and takes the position of First Officer, replacing Una and serving beside Captain Kirk, becoming one of his best friends. We also see Cadet Nyota Uhura in Strange New Worlds, another character that would return 6 years later as the communications officer and linguistically gifted officer of the original series. This marks her first time aboard the Enterprise as part of her training. Alongside this, we also see Nurse Christine Chapel, who is on medical exchange on the Enterprise and will later return in Kirk's era as a permanent member of the medical team. And alongside this we have Momenga, the Chief Medical Officer who has taken over from Philip Boyce and will later serve alongside Leonard McCoy. There are a couple of new characters too. Laan Noonien Singh, who is the Chief of Security and is in some way related to Khan Noonien Singh, a noted villain of Star Trek canon and eventual rival of Kirk. Hopefully that won't be held against her, as Khan isn't around for another 8 years. He's in cryo-sleep. There is the helmsman of the ship, Erica Ortigas, who is a relatively unknown character, and Chief Engineer Hemmer, a species called the Anar, who are telepathic but blind. These characters' fates are unknown, and they are all in red shirts. Just saying. So that's the crew. On to the plot. The series did spin out of Star Trek Discovery, and as such has some events that are tied to it. However, many of the events of Discovery Season 2 were technically classified by Starfleet, so while there are personal plot elements left over, a lot of it will not be mentioned or addressed outside of certain characters in the know. Pike, Spock and Una, mostly. This is because throughout Discovery's career it visited other dimensions, got involved in stopping illicit Section 31 operations, and was the testbed for numerous top-secret research and development technologies. It ended up vanishing into a time vortex to the 32nd century, and Pike covered up the disappearance as a malfunction caused by the aforementioned illicit Section 31. On board the vessel was one Commander Michael Burnham, who was an adopted sister to Spock, and the classification of Discovery's fate is in part to give a reason as to why she was never talked about openly again by her brother. The other biggest takeaway is that during all of these events, Captain Pike bore witness to his own future, a future as an audience we were aware of from the original series, which, as a reminder, is set 6 years after Strange New Worlds. In 2266, Pike is taking part on a training cruise when a malfunction endangers the cadets and he stays behind to evacuate them from the engine room. He saves them all, but is horribly dosed with delta radiation, leaving him to become wheelchair-bound and only able to communicate through a single light. Pike has seen this outcome for himself, and has been told it is unavoidable, so that is something he will have to come to terms with. The last thing to bear in mind for the show is that it has seen a complete visual overhaul, even though it's a prequel to the original series. The ship, sets, uniform, aliens, almost everything has been redesigned to look more modern than the original, which does look dated. Whether or not that appeals to you or not, that is the route they have gone with it, and it is not indicative of it being set in an alternate universe or anything, unless we're explicitly told this is the case in the shows. So that is about everything you need to know if you're going to check out Strange New Worlds. It is a more episodic format akin to the first 6 series, and a deliberate attempt to recapture that classic style of Star Trek with a modern flair. For my part, I tend to agree with the common consensus that it has worked out so far. Unfortunately, streaming rights and annoyances like this have prevented it from having a worldwide release on official sources. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you're curious about this series or if you'll be checking it out. I've been Rick. Goodbye.